Are you afraid of ghosts? Well, turn the lights down and let's get strange. My name is Seamus, and I host the podcast, The Daily Ghost. Here at The Daily Ghost, we bring creepypasta stories to life. We read your stories, as well as stories that have already been pre-written. I'm also going to be telling you a lot about paranormal history throughout the world. Every city will be detailed, thorough, and creepy. Tune in on your favorite podcast app. Stay strange. And now back to your show.
Hi, this is Andy Larson.
And I'm Rob Stewart.
And I'm Chad Smith.
And we are the Ghosts of the Stratosphere. And as a real comic book podcast, take it from us and do yourself a favor. Do not listen to Pino Comics. They don't know shit about comic books. They even got comic books in their name, but they'd rather talk about the Golden Girls or what John had for breakfast than real comic book news.
Yeah, but we have ghosts in our name and we don't talk about supernatural stuff.
And stratospheres. I don't even know what that means. But yeah, Pino Comics don't know shit about comics.
Yeah, they are the worst.
Hi there, this is John from Pino Comics.
This is the other John from Pino Comics.
And we just wanted to warn you before you tune into our quite excellent show that we may or may not use, what type of term would you use for the language, John?
Swearing with flair.
Swearing with flair.
Colorful language.
Colorful language.
Or just plain out, I don't know.
Gutter talk.
Gutter talk, there we go.
You've been warned. Listen in. There you go. The sound of another pint opening up. Pint of Comics back at you again. Uh-oh, Lloyd's.
I'm empty. I'll be
Lloyd's
right back.
empty. He's going to go get a beer. All right, so this is Johnny Ganache here. Second of a Johnless show. Sir John, if you remember from, well, whenever the last episode came out without him, we're recording this together. We don't always put them out next to each other. John is at a family Christmas function for the evening. So I put the Manster signal out, and Manster came running about. And it's a very special show. This is a show that's actually kind of orchestrated by the Master. Let me explain to you something real quick. How a little bit of behind. Oh, there we go. What do we got tonight, real quick? Two Hearted Ale, American IPA from Bell's. Where's Bell's located? There is not a lot of information on this can.
You know what? I don't want to tip it because it's open.
Yeah. Comstock, Michigan. Bell's Brewery, Comstock, Michigan. Brewed and canned by Bell's Brewery. And this is a American IPA.
Yeah.
And I want to read the whole can. It goes all the way around the can.
We forgot to do it on the last episode.
American IPA brewed with 100% Centennial hops and bursting with aromas ranging from pine to grapefruit. Let's give it a sip and see what it tastes like here. Oh, I get the grapefruit like immediately.
Yeah, it's very grapefruity.
Yeah, holy cow. That's good.
Yeah, you know, I didn't catch the IPA part.
Oh, no.
I saw Two-Hearted Ale because I had texted you earlier what kind of beer you wanted. If you wanted the regular, I was going to get you like a tart gose or something.
Yeah, sour. No, I'm not.
I didn't mean to get the IPA. So
yeah, I'm okay. I appreciate you bringing beer over. No, it's I'm not a huge IPA fan, but this is actually pretty good. So we'll be having a couple of these during the show. So what I was going to say was a little behind the scenes on Pino Comics.
Did you
right?
introduce me, I guess?
Yeah.
I missed all that.
You rudely got up to get a beer.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, but you know.
Lloyd the Green Manster is with us, and
These podcast molecules are going into your ear holes.
That's right. You feel something weird in your left ear hole and your right ear hole, that's all Manster for you. So a little behind the scenes Pino Comics information. So we have the radio show and we have the podcast. The way it works is Sir John is heavily in charge of the radio show. I would say heavily. He books 90% of the guests. Like, let me put it this way. When someone big like Raymond Feist, the fantasy author who sold 18 trillion copies of his latest, trilogy, is on the radio show, that was thank you to Sir John. When a podcaster or someone a little bit smaller is on, that's usually one of my guys. Okay, so John handles most of that stuff. On the inverse, the podcast, most of the time when you have these lists,
you're the bookie for that.
I kind of do more of because the podcast is generally no guests. It's just generally friends come on, and usually the ideas behind a lot of what we talk about. Let's do a top this show. Let's do that. Let's do Pint Movie Invitational, Movie Invitational. a lot of that stuff will end up being my thought, right?
Yep.
But one of the great parts, and John puts in his part too, for sure, is having Lloyd, who comes in all the time and helps us back clean up here. Lloyd's an idea guy. And Lloyd had an idea a while ago that he had sent me. And I'll be fully admit, when you first sent me this idea, I was kind of like, I don't know how that's going to work.
Oh, yeah.
But then I thought about it. And you resent me the email, I think. And we talked about how we were going to record.
Yep.
And I sent these. So basically, the idea behind this episode is it's a comic book questionnaire of sorts, right?
Right.
What was your reasoning
I
behind
want to
coming
know
up?
the heartbeat of other comic book lovers.
Right. Lloyd came into comics late in life. At what, about 40 years old?
At about 40. Yeah.
Right. So he doesn't have like necessarily what a lot of us have. A lot of
I never
comic
read,
readers. Yeah.
you know, the Dark Phoenix saga and all the things that everybody knows about, all the collections that people have built up over time. Yeah, I'm new to this, and I want to know what's going on in this community.
What you wanted to know? It's almost like a census. You wanted to get
Right.
a certain amount of information based on that.
Right, that's it. What did we call it? The
I think it was the Manster comic census.
comic census? I thought it was Questionnaire or something. Fanfare Questionnaire. That was
Okay,
it.
the Manster fanfare, comic fanfare questionnaire.
Yeah.
I took this and I looked at it again with fresh eyes, and I said, I think this might work in a show level where I'm going to send this out to some of our friends and some of the people we know that are comic centric, comic fans, comic forward, whether they're podcasters or whether they're artists or writers or what may be.
Right.
And we're going to get them to answer the same group of questions, and we're going to go over their answers, and it'll spark discussion between the two of us.
Yeah, we'll see the pulse of the comic community.
I think it'll be kind of nice for people to hear that, if they listen to X podcast, go, hey, that's what this guy likes. That's what this person likes. I will say this right off the bat. I'm a little pissed at myself. It's a sausage fest. We have 10 questionnaires.
Yeah, it is.
And I never, at any point, I sent it to a bunch of friends, and it's all guys. And I'll be the first to admit that I thought of that afterwards and went, fuck. So my plan is to do this again with all women.
Excellent. Good plan.
So that is what we're going to do. All women the next time.
All right.
That's what we're going to do. All women next time. That's nuts.
And I hope you ladies stick in there for the whole show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm saying that right off the bat because after we got all these together, I went, fuck. I did not ask any women, so I felt like a little bit of a heel there. So we're going to, basically, we each have 5 lists in our hand.
Plus our own.
Plus our own. We're going to do our own at the very end. These questions are all Lloyd. I think maybe I added 1 or 2 in here somewhere.
You did change a couple.
I changed a little of the wording. Yeah, that might have been a little...
Right. One of them, 1 or 2 of them might have missed what I was going for, but...
I'll start it off.
all right.
And we're going to introduce you to the people that we're doing this with. So the very first one, our friend from So Wizard Podcast. If you haven't checked them out, go to Twitter, at So Wizard. They are on their, at this point, 227th
That's a lot.
consecutive week of podcasting. No reruns.
Wow.
No bullshit. Now, here on the pint, we will fully admit, every once in a while, you get what I call a bonus radio episode. Let me explain to you behind the scenes on the pint. So we have a radio show every Sunday night, and quite a lot of them are quite good, in my opinion. We have
WESU.
WESUFM.org if you want to check us out,
88.1.
6:30 p.m. Sometimes I don't feel like editing the fucking podcast because amongst everything else, it's a real life drain. And sometimes I realize, oh God, it's like Wednesday and we have nothing new out. That's when I'll put a radio show out. So Wizard's never done anything like that.
No.
So Wizard,
They're at it every week.
They're at it every week, and I bow to them. We've been doing this since April of 2017. It's currently December of 2018, and this will probably be, depending on how I put it out, episode 70. Now, those numbers don't jive.
Okay.
Technically, if you look at our list, we're at like episode 88 or 90. We're 20 ahead because for 20 different weeks I put out radio shows.
Wow, there's 20 of them. Huh?
There's 20 of them.
Jeez.
Yeah. And I don't feel bad about that.
No,
but
no
that's
need
just the
to.
way it is because every week there has been at least a pint of comics dropping in.
And there's very interesting radio shows. So.
Yeah. But I do want to say again, the whole reason we're telling this long story, So Wizard, 227 plus weeks of never.
That's almost one whole year. Yeah, my math might be a little off.
A little off. Yeah, that'd be a long fucking year. All right, so this one in particular is Joey DiCarlo. Joey has been on our radio show before, and he's been on the podcast a few times. And he's the comic guy of that show. Marcellus is more the movie guy, and Joey is the comic guy. So we're gonna start with who are your top 3 currently working artists and writers, and let's see what he put down for writers. He put down Nick Spencer.
Ooh, The Fix and
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
I mean, he's moved on to Spider-Man
Yep.
and Captain. This is the guy that put the infamous words in Captain America's mouth, Hail Hydra.
Oh, okay.
Getting death threats at Comic Cons and stuff. Whoa. Dan Abnett, who's pretty well known for a lot of stuff. He worked very closely with a guy named Lanning. I can't think of the first name right now. They did a lot of the Guardians of the Galaxy and Annihilation Wave. And Al Ewing. Al Ewing did a book I loved. He was like the third writer. Jennifer Blood. Did you read Jennifer Blood?
I'm familiar with it, but I haven't read it.
Dynamite, I think it was. It was basically the female Punisher.
Yep.
It started as a Garth Ennis book, and then it moved on to a different writer, and then Ewing took over to end it. And then his top 3 artists, and I right off the bat, I want to give Joey a high five. Greg Horn, who is a fantastic artist. Greg Horn, I have a quick, funny story about Greg Horn. At the first New York Comic Con I ever went to, Greg Horn doesn't usually have a booth set up at Artist Alley. He sets up in a booth where he sells prints. It's like he's not like sitting there sketching. Okay. He's hucking his prints, right? Every time I've seen him at a show, he's hucking his prints. And my con etiquette wasn't like great. I hadn't gone to a lot of shows. I think it was like one of my first early shows. So when I met him, I'm like, oh, this is fucking Greg Horn. This guy's an awesome artist. I immediately do like a social faux pas. I meet him and I shake his hand. Yeah. I put my hand out and I shake his hand.
Okay.
And he's too nice to not shake my hand. But what Greg Horn isn't too nice to do is right in front of me after we shake hands and like right as we're still talking, he's got a gallon of Purell and he blows a load of it into his hand. And then as we're talking, he's scrubbing like a doctor.
Yeah.
And I remember being a little off put by it, but then I'm like, these guys, they can't be.
You got to touch a lot of people.
Exactly.
Yeah. I never really considered that myself.
Yeah. So that's my funny Greg Horn story. I always screw up with this guy's name, but he's a fantastic artist. He was the guy on Hawkeye a few years ago, David Aja.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that guy, sequential art is unreal. It is unreal.
Yeah, he's
got a style all his own.
And he's got a new book called Seeds out.
And then this is the one where I said I want to give Joey a high five because so many people hate this guy. He's maybe my favorite artist. We'll get to that. John Romita Jr.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know he's
not a huge fan myself.
I know certain people will go, and his style has changed a lot over the years, but also one of the nicest guys out there. Okay, so second question. Who is your all-time favorite artist? So the first one was kind of currently working. Second one, all-time favorite artist. He put down John Byrne or George Perez. Two classic artists. Guy's been around for a long time. Byrne also really well known as a writer. Long runs on Fantastic Four and other books. Created Alpha Flight. Who is your all-time favorite writer? All right, so he put down Jim Starlin, creator of Thanos. Right. Okay. So Jim Starlin's been around for a long time.
You might get a lot of blank stares from
and that's why I'm going to add in. I'm going to add in stuff here and there. Yep. Roger Stern. Roger Stern is a longtime Marvel writer. He did a lot of Spider-Man stuff in the 80s. There was a very famous run on Spider-Man about Hobgoblin, and Stern wrote that. And then Tom DeFalco, who's another Marvel, and he's done other stuff, but he's another Marvel writer from around that time period in the 80s. He's the creator of the Spider-Girl from the MC2. There was this, at one point, second Marvel universe, before they started all this multiverse shit. And this character, Mayday Parker, was the Spider-Girl of the Marvel universe. She was the daughter of Peter Parker. And she had a book that I think got canceled 3 times and always got brought back. It ended up running for over 100 issues. And it is, I think, still to this day, the Marvel's longest-running female solo series.
That's pretty long, over 100 issues.
Yeah, longest-running female solo series of all time. All-time favorite character, Spider-Man. And I don't want to give any spoilers to this away, but we got 10 people on this list here. Get used to hearing that.
Yeah, I see one here.
It's pretty indicative of Spider-Man's popularity. Who's your favorite creative team? Roger Stern and John Buscema on the Avengers. All right, so Roger Stern, we just talked about a minute ago. John Buscema, who's one of the old school Marvel artists. Avengers, Conan, he worked on for a long time. Is there a creator whose book you will always buy? And he put Kurt Busiek. Kurt Busiek was Astro City.
Astro City, I know him from that.
Avengers in the 90s, he had a pretty popular run. And he was the writer of Thunderbolts, which was, at the time in the 90s, it was a pretty popular book. First issue of Thunderbolts has what's considered to be one of the all-time, I guess, great twist endings to the end of the book. I don't want to give it away because some people haven't read it yet.
Right.
Do you buy digital? Why or why not? No, I want the comic in my hand.
Right.
Do you buy hardcovers? I did a shitty job stapling. Do you buy hardcovers? And I think I added onto this hardcovers, trades, graphic novels.
Okay.
Not just hardcovers. Only for story arcs, I want to have on my shelf top tier stuff.
Right.
What books do you own 3 or more different formats or versions of? He put down Infinity Gauntlet, digital, floppies, and the trade.
Yep.
The part of that question was floppies, trades, hardcovers, deluxe, artist proof.
Lots of different versions.
Lots of different versions. Do you still read books, novels, nonfiction, etc.? Yes, he does. Mostly fantasy and sci-fi. Do you ever keep buying a book even after you've lost interest? Completionism or fan of character, writer, artist? Years ago, but now I drop shit for nothing.
Nice.
Oh, I'm sorry. Years ago, but now I drop shit for anything. No loyalty anymore.
Yeah, see, that's I really struggled with that myself.
I struggle
That's
with
why I
to
put that
this
on
day.
there.
Yeah.
Because when I was just starting out, nearly 10 years ago now, or maybe more than 10 years, boy, I would just keep buying stuff over and over. And they're like crack. They got that cliffhanger ending, and you really want to know what happens next, even if you really don't care. But yeah.
I got a room down the hall there, Lloyd. Take it right. That will show you. There's a lot of shit in there that
I'm glad someone of you wrote that. Honestly, that's the answer I was looking for.
We got a lot of good, got a lot of good, honest answers in here. Not just from Joy, but everybody. Let's see. Okay, so what's your favorite non-Marvel or DC book? Walking Dead or Saga? Mm-hmm. Okay, both
excellent
great
books.
What one book would you recommend to non-comic book readers and why? Preacher or Why the Last Man? He did not answer why, but I agree fully with both of those.
Yeah.
What do you do with your old comics? Do you store them forever? Keep for your children? Donate them? Tag sale or eBay? He keeps keys to sell or sentimental comics and sell the rest.
Okay.
So basically, I think Joey does a lot of eBay sale stuff.
Mm-hmm. So he doesn't have total rooms bogged down with comics.
No, Joey's also. I want to mention this too. I think some of these guys we should mention it. 2 kids, married.
Yeah.
So he's got responsibilities and stuff going on. Do you ever reread any comics? Trades, hardcovers, which ones? Crisis on Infinite Earths, Watchmen, the Burn Run of FF, Infinity Gauntlet, all the time.
Okay.
So he goes back quite a bit. Do you own original art of your favorite artists, and if so, examples? No. How often and which Comic-Cons do you attend? Yearly. Rhode Island Comic-Con, Terrificon, BingCon, Plastic City Comic-Con, Empire State Comic-Con, Comic-Con, COMICONN.
Okay.
Fan Expo
Not
Boston.
Pinko Comic-Con.
Yeah. Joey's not a Pinko commie. Fan Expo Boston, Lock City Comic-Con.
Wow. All right. That's a good number.
And again, they cover a lot. If you listen to So Wizard, they always get great interviews and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I try to go to New York City, New York Comic-Con every 2 years because it's fucking expensive.
It's expensive and it's
it's
crazy. You can't even move in there.
It's a thing. I used to go 2 days every year, and I moved it to 1 because I'm done at 1.
Right.
I'm fine. That day is in my memory. Got what I wanted. Yeah. I'm done. And I love this. This was a great question that you had, Lloyd. I mean, these are all your questions. Does your partner understand, support your habit?
Yeah.
Is he or she a comic fan too? And Joey said she's fine with it. She doesn't really read comics except for a few titles. She's a huge Preacher fan.
Oh,
Have
excellent.
you ever stopped reading for a while, then come back into the fold? No. He's one of the rare ones that'll
I guess
say
so.
that. And do you see yourself still reading comics when you're 80 years old? And very honestly, if I can still see. So I guess what he's saying is that
he's a lifer.
Yeah, he's a lifer, or if they come up with real comics or whatever, he'll figure something out. Mm-hmm. So, Lloyd, that was Joey DiCarlo of So Wizard Podcast. Please check them out. What is your first list you're going to read off?
Let's see. Well, I got Mike Kelleher here. So www.kellestration.com. So yeah, Mike, we talked about, well, not earlier, on another episode.
Yep. Artist,
restorer.
Art restorer. He does a lot of work for Marvel. He does a lot of work for DC. A lot of companies.
But I first met Mike at it was a Terrificon.
Probably, yeah. I can see it. That's when we met him.
Yeah, we met him there, and I bought a giant book from him, the USS Stevens.
Yep.
It's a fantastic book. I haven't read through it all yet.
I got it on my shelf as well.
Read a big chunk. So yeah, here's Mike's answers. So your top 3 currently working artists and writers. He's a little out of the loop currently, but he likes Lee Weeks. Go ahead and comment on these because I'm not familiar with some of these.
Lee Weeks is a old school guy who's been around. He's still around though. He did a Daredevil mini not too long ago. He's still out there and working. He's good. He's really good. He's a solid artist.
Then there's Juanjo Guarnido.
I can't comment on this guy myself, but I remember the name because when we had him on the radio show, we asked Mike what his favorite book was, period. Mm-hmm. And he said that name, and it was for a book called Black Sad.
Oh, yes.
BLACKSAD. Yep. Mm-hmm. I don't know it, but I can tell you that's what that's from.
Okay, cool. And then Dean White, who's a colorist who I'm familiar with, he works on Black Science.
Oh,
which is
okay.
one of my favorite
Rick
books.
Remender. You're a big Rick Remender guy. Yeah.
And for writers, Cullen Bunn did a lot of Deadpool. He does a lot of everything.
Cullen Bunn is...
He does horror comics. He did Harrow County for Dark Horse.
Yep.
He works on stuff for Aftershock.
He did for
Dark
Aftershock.
Arc.
He did the Brothers Dracul, which was a cool.
Oh, he did that
series.
too?
I like that a lot. Yeah. I interviewed him once for when I used to.
Oh, cool.
PopCultureUncovered.com. Check him out. It's a good site out of Maryland. But yeah, I interviewed him one time.
Cullen Bunn and then Juan Diaz Canales.
I'll be honest, not familiar.
Okay, not familiar either. But all right, so who's your favorite all-time artist? Jack Davis.
I had to look this up. Jack Davis was a guy who I believe had ties to Mad Magazine.
Okay.
But he was old school. He's been around for a long time.
All right, all-time favorite writer, Len Wein. Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing, recently deceased, Len Wein. Great art.
So I do know a little bit. All-time favorite character, again, Spider-Man. Can't go wrong there.
Nope.
Creative team, Lee and Kirby.
That's also repeated.
Yeah, I don't think you can beat that. Is there a creator whose book you will always buy? Nope. Do you buy digital? No. Yes, he doesn't tell why, but yeah, he buys digital, and I'm assuming storage.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool to read a comic on an iPad, I have to say.
I want to drop this in real quick for Mike's list. I just looked it up. Jack Davis was one of the original founding cartoonists for Mad. Oh, and he had a much longer career after that. After he's passed away within a couple years, 2016. But that fits because Mike is. I bet you if you asked Mike, he would almost. I bet you Mike would call himself a cartoonist and not an illustrator. He's one of those. I think he's old school like that. I think. Yeah.
Yep. Do you buy hardcovers, trades, graphic novels? Yes. What book do you own 3 or more different formats? So The Dark Knight Returns, excellent, and many Silver Age Marvel and DC comics. Do you still read books? Yes, but in audiobook format. Mike, I totally get that. When I'm driving in my car, that's pretty much the only thing I do is audiobooks and podcasts. And unfortunately, these days, I have a car without a CD drive anymore. New freaking car didn't have a CD drive in it.
CDs are obsolete, man. It's over.
Yeah,
it's over, Johnny.
I know. I feel so bad. Do you keep buying a book after you've lost interest? All right, he's honest here too. I did for a long time, but no longer.
So okay, so he gave up.
Yeah, you just when you lose interest, you stop buying it.
Yeah,
you know?
I got to learn that.
Yeah. Who's your favorite non-Marvel or DC book? Black Sad, which you mentioned earlier. Though I hesitate to call Dark Horse an indie. Yeah, I understand.
It is, though.
What comic would you recommend to a non-comic book reader and why? Oh, nice. I have many of these myself. Any Calvin and Hobbes collection. It's a surefire way to introduce people to sequential art that they will enjoy.
This explains why at his party last week that we went to.
Yeah, Calvin and
Hobbes.
During
Pictionary, he had me draw Calvin and Hobbes.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I have several. I had bought them, and at the time I never really considered a comic book, they're comic strips.
But they're still...
That is a great introduction because people understand that.
Right.
They don't feel weird for reading that.
No.
They don't feel whatever. There's some stigma about reading comic books. What do you do with your old comics? All of the above. Store them, keep them for children, donate them, sell them. Yeah, boy, I asked that because I didn't know what to start doing. Because my wife said... after I was into comics for a few years and she realized it wasn't just a passing phase, she's like, I don't want this to overcome the house. I don't want it to creep out into the living room and onto the shelves.
Well, look how thin they are, honey. And there's just one of them. Look how thin. Look at right there, right now on my coffee table.
Yeah.
There's 4 stacks across it.
That's right.
That I have to go through and figure out what to do with.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're almost tipping over.
Yeah.
And I promised her at that time, it was still manageable. And now I've actually we redid. We did a renovation in our house not too long ago. I designed 2 closets just to store comics and figures and trades.
Your
and
closets
hardcovers.
are badass.
They're pretty good.
They're badass. Yeah.
But they are designed by me just for the sole purpose of that. And those are at their limit. They are bursting.
Bursting at the seams.
Yeah. So I got to come up with something else. Or just buy a new house.
Or a second house. A storage house.
Right. Do you ever reread any comics? All right. So The Dark Knight Returns, Black Sad, and Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein at least once a year for inspiration and enjoyment. Do you own original art? Well, being an artist, he has Bernie Wrightson art, Gene Colan, Keith Pollard, Bill Plimpton, Celia, Callie, and many others.
I would imagine being in the art community.
Yeah,
that would
yeah.
be a big thing. And Comic Cons, two to three per year. Terrific Con in New York City. Your wife, is she a comic fan? Do they understand? My wife loves manga and anime. Have you ever stopped reading for a while? Never stopped, but I have had prolonged periods of waning interest. And do you see yourself reading when you're 80? I hope so.
Yeah, there's a lot of I hope so's on these. All right, our next one is Keith Gleason. Keith is a really cool guy we met at BingCon. He is the author of Mighty Mascots, which is a comic coming out in 2019 through Alterna Comics.
Alterna, yep.
He let me read a copy of the first issue, and it is fantastic. It's basically all these serial and kind of mascots that form a super team together. But obviously they're not like, Toucan Sam. You can't do any of that stuff. That's licensed. So he created his own www.recklesssidekick.com. I think that's his production company.
Okay.
And then also he is the, you heard Joey talk about Plastic City Comic Con, which is up in Massachusetts. Keith runs it. So if you go to www.plasticcitycomiccon.com, you can check that out. And I think, don't quote me, check it out, but I think it's in July. All right, here's his responses. Top 3 favorite artists and writers. Artist, Alex Ross. Duncan Fegredo. Now, obviously, Alex Ross, we all know.
Wow.
He's the Norman Rockwell of comic books.
We've talked about his displays at New York before.
Duncan Fegredo is a name that is super familiar to me, and I probably have books by him, but it's not catching anything with me. And Steve Dillon. Steve Dillon, who passed away a couple years ago, who is also a favorite of mine, despite the fact that we've talked about that
very similar faces.
Every person in a Steve Dillon comic looks like they're related because the faces are all the same, but he still is a fantastic artist. Writers, Alan Moore, again, Swamp Thing and Watchmen, and I mean, he's also a fucking wizard. Garth Ennis. Garth Ennis is one of the grittiest guys who's ever worked. Hellblazer and The Boys and Preacher. Just one of my favorites as well. And Robert Venditti. Robert Venditti's like kind of, I think, a newer guy. Valiant, and he worked on The Flash at one point. I think he worked on The Flash during the 52, the new 52. He's not the guy writing The Flash now. So who's your all-time favorite creative team? Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. Watchmen right there. So you can't really argue with that. Unless you're Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison hates Watchmen. There was an article this week, you'll have to check it out online, where Grant Morrison explains why he never liked Watchmen. I don't remember where I saw it, but I'm sure if you type in Grant Morrison hates Watchmen, you'll see it. Let's see. Is there a creator whose book you will always buy? Garth Ennis. I see that because I do buy a lot of his books. Matter of fact, for your birthday this year, I bought you a Garth Ennis book.
That's right, and I've already read it.
Did you enjoy it?
I loved it.
Welcome back, Frank. The Punisher. The Punisher arc from Marvel Knights early.
I love Manucci.
So, do you still buy or do you buy digital? Why or why not? No, I still enjoy holding a book in my hands and rifling through the pages. I still have a collector's mentality. I feel that. Do you buy hardcovers, trades, all that stuff? Yes. What books do you own 3 different formats or versions? Floppies, trades, hardcovers, deluxe, blah, blah, blah. None really. Once I have a book either as a floppy or trade, I usually don't double dip. Good for you, man.
I wish I could do that.
Good for you. I own 3 different versions of Watchmen. And the other day, I don't know how I missed it, but I saw they did a Watchmen Noir that's all in black and white.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I feel like I need to own that. I also need to be brought in the back of my.
You need to be flogged.
I need to be brought out in the back of my backyard, tied up to a tree, and fucking shot. Apparently. All right. Let's see. Do you still read books, novels, nonfiction? I do read novels, but haven't in a while. I have too many comics to read.
I know that's the problem.
Do you ever keep buying a book even after you've lost interest? Sadly, yes, mostly a completionist, and I feel that totally. What's your favorite non-Marvel or DC book? Right now, it would be Gideon Falls from Image.
Oh, cool.
And I don't read that, but Gary, G.I. Gary, reviewed issue 1 for us on the www.pinecomics.com website.
He sure did.
And I know he liked issue 1, so. Oh, okay, this is actually a second part of that question. His all-time favorite would either be Bone, the Jeff Smith.
Yep.
I own that. It's on my.
It's a huge.
Never read
volume.
it. It's a fucking giant volume. Or Stray Bullets. Stray Bullets. Was, David
Latham.
Yeah.
Latham.
What one book would you recommend to non-comic book readers and why? I usually recommend Fables because everybody knows fairy tales, and that can help get someone to give a comic book a try for the first time. That's very true. I have all the Fables trades. I read the first 4. I fell off of it, but not because of disinterest. It's a good book.
I've never read Fable. Is that Mike Carey or is that? That's
Bill Willingham.
Okay, yeah.
Bill Willingham. They did something very interesting for the last. So Fables lasted 150 issues, and it had, I think, I'm probably wrong, 12 trades as it went along.
Sounds about right.
When the last issue came out, it was a trade. It was the last trade in the series.
Oh, okay.
So the last issue came out, and it was actually a trade.
Wow.
So it fits right on your shelf with all the rest of them.
Yeah.
So technically, it was issue 150, but it was trade like 13 or whatever.
Well, that's unique.
And you know what? I mean, I don't think anybody that stuck around that long cared about paying an extra $10. Mm-hmm. But it's in a trade format. I thought that was unique and very cool. What do you do with your old comics? Store them forever? Keep for your children? I usually store the series that I think I will want to reread or have made an impact on me. Everything else, I usually sell off, give away, or donate.
Okay.
Do you ever reread any comics, trades, hardcovers? Which ones? I do reread comics, mostly series that have made an impact. Watchmen, Dark Knight, etc. Or if it's something I like, but I start forgetting all the details. I recently reread all of Warren Ellis's Wildstorm up to the current issue. Do you own original art of your favorite artist? And if so, examples. I have a few pieces of original art, but I was never a collector of originals. I have a nice cover from artist Paris Cullins from New Gods #6. How often and which Comic-Cons do you attend? I set up at multiple shows every year. The roster changes a lot, but the staples for me and my wife are always Plastic City Comic-Con, shameless plug, Terrificon, New York Comic-Con, and various one-day shows in New England. Does your partner understand support your habit? Is he or she a fan too? Yes, my wife is an artist as well and is with me at every show. She does read some comics, but is not as consistent as I am. Have you ever stopped reading for a while, then come back into the fold? Yes, I've stopped a handful of times, but I always get pulled back into the mix. Do you see yourself still reading comics when you're 80 years old? And this is a very honest answer. Yeah, most likely, as long as the cover price isn't $19.99 by then. And it very well could be.
Very good.
Very good. Thank you, Keith. Check Keith out at the websites we gave you before.
All right. So the next one we have here is Andrew Larson from Ghosts of the Stratosphere.
Yep.
That's gotstratosphere.com.
One of my favorite podcasts. A bunch of great guys. 3 great guys out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yep. They talk comics every single week.
Yep.
All right. So top 3 working artists and writers.
By the way, if you're listening, you might hear my dogs going completely mental in the background. Something's happening in the back of my house. I hope everything's okay.
Yeah. They're Chip Zdarsky. I know he's doing a lot of writing now.
Yeah, he's taking over Daredevil.
Is he?
He's the next writer for Marvel Daredevil.
Okay. Yeah, the Charles Soule. I really like that. Tom King, who currently does Batman.
Yep.
And I think
he did Mr. Miracle.
Yep. And Fred Van Lent, who also did Valiant work.
He did a lot of Valiant stuff.
I know he's doing some other stuff.
He's done some Marvel stuff. I don't know if he's the guy writing. There's that West Coast Avengers title that just came out. He might be writing that, but I could be wrong.
Okay. So for artists, Mike Allred, he did Silver Surfer.
He recently did Silver Surfer. Mike Allred did, back in the early 2000s, there was a book called X-Statix that was spun off of X-Force in the Marvel Universe when they were doing all these things with X-Men books at that time. Grant Morrison took over and had a book called New X-Men, and then X-Force became X-Statix. Mike Allred is he's a cup of tea artist. Like, you either like him or you don't like him. I like him. But
did he do It Girl and the Atomics? I think he did.
He might have, yeah. He's super.
And I think some online comic I'm not remembering the name of.
Yeah, well, he also does, I believe he does Madman.
Okay.
Which is probably his most popular creation.
All right. Mike Allred, Doc Shaner.
Doc Shaner is awesome.
And Mike Del Mundo, who's very unique. I think he's another you either love him or you hate him artist. Currently, he's doing Thor.
Right.
He did Weird World. All-time favorite artist, John Buscema.
Yep. Avengers, old Avengers stuff. Conan for a long time. He's one of the Marvel bullpen guys, I guess you can call him.
All right. All-time favorite writer. This was a tough one for him. Every writer I can think of had good and bad stuff, but Jim Shooter was great at universe building. That's one of the most difficult things to do.
Yeah, Jim Shooter was the guy very important to Marvel in like the 70s and 80s. He ran Marvel for a long time.
Oh, okay.
He wrote. He was the guy that was in charge of when the Secret Wars happened and all that stuff.
Favorite character, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Favorite creative team, Lee and Kirby. No question. Is there a creator whose book you will always buy? So he loves Mike Allred. He'll always buy the Mike Allred books. Does he buy digital? Over the past 3 years, he bought strictly digital. Obviously, they take up less space, and with a good reader, you can quickly move from book to book. That's very true. I find when I read digital, I just find it so hard to keep track of what I've read and what I haven't read, and
the only time
it just kind of gets buried in further down.
What,
in the
what
list
I would do is
me.
when I did some digital stuff, I didn't do much, but with the Marvel codes, is I would read arcs, and then when I was done, I would make sure to erase everything I read so it was off of my iPad.
Oh, okay.
So then I would know. But I mean, it is truly.
Well, they have lots of good smart lists and all these
Yeah.
different things now that you can do.
And it's great when you have the books on, like say you have Old Man Logan 1 through 48 on your iPad. You finish 17 and it queues up and goes start 18.
Yeah, right.
It's like shit. Yes, why
Yeah,
not?
it
I don't have
knows.
to go find it.
Yeah, that's very cool. Do you buy hardcovers? Oh, he's got a long answer. Occasionally, I'm a bargain hunter.
Well, let me just throw something in here because I'm hoping Andrew listens to this. I know Stu will. Stu is a listener of our show.
All right.
Andrew ain't got nothing compared to Stu. I took Stu's list over here because I'm going to get tired.
Oh,
reading
you got
it.
someone else from?
Oh, there's
okay.
all three of them. All three.
Oh, okay,
Stu, Andrew, and Chad. I have Chad and Stu. Stu is long as fuck. He even says I'm very verbose. So
Yeah.
don't feel bad about reading whatever you're reading. Because
Okay.
Andrew can't be as long as Stu.
All right. I don't go out of my way to buy hardcovers unless I get a great deal. I would suggest InStockTrades.com.
Oh yeah,
Great
Yeah,
place
yeah.
for buying hardcovers, man. Oh man, everything's almost 50% off.
Did I introduce you to that or no?
You sure did. I hate
tell
you for
I
it.
tell people that little scummy secret.
I buy stuff every month because every month, if you buy something, they give you a discount the next month.
I don't know how they do it.
So I'm stuck into buying something every
I
single
don't know,
month.
and it's all new. It's all wrapped up. It's all.
It's beautiful.
And when it comes, I'll
Yeah.
tell you what too.
They know how to package
soup to
books.
nuts, right? So their prices are better than everybody.
Yeah.
$50 and above is free shipping. I'm doing a commercial for them right now for free.
Yeah.
And then when you get their packaging, it is so tight.
It's shrink
and
wrapped,
and then
it's
boarded
like
together.
vacuum packed.
They don't fuck around.
Yeah.
You know, I get stuff from Amazon and shit's knocking
It's
around.
folded
in
in
there.
half and stuffed in your mailbox.
Yeah. InStockTrades.com is the shit.
Yep. So in stock trades, there you go. Shout out. So where I leave off. So my collection of actual hardcovers is more eclectic and not representational of whether I was super into a book or not. So basically, he's buying what when he gets a good bargain. So it may not be what he loves, but I own several that were good but not groundbreaking just because I got a great deal on it. So he's a real bargain hunter.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
Well, again, we're talking about another guy. I don't know how many, but he's got a wife and kids. And
Yeah. Oh, plus he likes to buy hardcovers from comic shops that support the podcast.
See?
Yeah, that's definitely good. It's very true. I like to support local things, and you give and you get.
Yeah.
Yeah. What books do you own? 3 or more different formats? A lot of books in 2 or more, but 3 is just way too intense for a frugal guy. I understand. I believe I have 1 book in hardback, tradeback, and digital. Marvel Masterworks, Avengers number 1 through 10.
Okay. Yep.
Do you still read books? I listen to a lot of audiobooks, another one of those. I really consider them the same. And yes, if anyone out there has a question, is hearing an audiobook the same as reading? Yes, it's the exact same.
I listen to Ghosts of the Stratosphere every week, and they pose that as a question on Twitter, and I think they discussed it on their show. And I really struggle with that because I'm not discounting it, but I think reading is such a actual defined word of using your eyes to look at something on paper and absorb the information.
Using
the information. Absorb the information. Now, okay.
You're using a sense. It doesn't necessarily have to be your eyes.
Okay, so when a blind person uses Braille, is that considered reading?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then that answers it. Audiobooks is reading.
Yeah, for sure.
That answers it.
All right. Question
Braille is the what's the word? Is the integer.
It's the definitive answer. It's the link. It's the common link.
That's what I needed to know.
Do you ever keep buying a book after you've lost interest? Occasionally, just to see if the series is going to go through a bit of a narrative lull, and then I'll pick back up again. However, usually cap it at 5. If you can get me re-engaged after that, you're not. If you can't get me re-engaged, you're not worth my time. Good answer. What's your favorite indie book? Madman by Mike Allred. Yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah,
before.
Madman. Yep. Even though I know they're not the same guy, Mike Allred and Michael Avon Oeming. Those names are, for some reason, always confuse me. So I'm always like, it's Madman, which I've never read. Is that Allred or Oeming? Oeming is the guy who did Powers with Bendis. He's got a much different style.
Yeah.
But their names, Mike A, whatever reason, I just always
I keep
interchange
stumbling.
those.
I know it's Mike, but I keep wanting to say Mark because for some reason the Allred makes me change the.
Yeah.
It's weird. What one book would you recommend to a non-comic book reader? And I was waiting for this one to come up. Watchmen, because everyone should read that at least once. Now, isn't Watchmen in the top 10 of like all-time books read,
It's probably
not even just graphic novels.
Yeah, at one point they did one of those lists and it was up there.
Yeah. What do you do with your old comics? I sold most of my back issues from when I was a kid, and now I have them in digital, right, or trade paperback. I do frame some of them. Interesting. I keep some for the kids to read, but I'm not really a collector of comics. I'm a reader of comics. Wow, well, that's a good answer. I don't really care how I read them. Excellent. Do you ever reread? I make a point to reread the first 10 issues of the Avengers almost yearly. Then there's stuff I read again for the podcast. Yeah, obviously, but that's depending on what we do. Do you own original art? I have a black suit Spider-Man commissioned from Ron Frenz.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Because that was a Spider-Man of my youth, and he was bored the day at the con and did it for me practically for free. Nice. What cons do you attend? We don't attend as many cons as we should, mainly the ones around Pittsburgh. It's difficult to get away when you got younger kids. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where a wife that can understand or a husband
comes into play.
That can help you out. Yeah, for sure.
Well, he definitely has one that, I mean, I don't know the answer yet. I read it, but his wife is on his show half the time.
Yeah,
not half the time, but she does quite a bit. She's actually writing for their website. So
yeah, no, I've heard her for sure. Does your partner understand and support your habit? My wife has always respected my love of comics. However, it wasn't until the podcast that she became an active fan of comics. Well, maybe that's what we need to do. Yeah, to get them. Well, actually, no. Lindsay is on and she is reading a comic.
Yeah,
right?
I picked her up a Rainbow Bright.
That's right.
Dynamite's doing. Yeah, she actually said she wanted to do a review. So we're not biting off the Ghosts of the Stratosphere, but we're gonna have my wife involved a little bit, and because in all honesty, hey, a woman's point of view is, and I read it, and I've never really read anything creative from Lindsay, and it was really good.
Excellent.
And she told me, she's like, don't post it, it's stupid. I'm like, Lynn, you really, except for she didn't give it an ending. She kind of stops.
Right.
I'm like, I loved it. I said, just finish it. Just however you got to finish it. Until next time, folks, or whatever. But I said, where you left it was just kind of like you feel like you're still reading.
Yeah.
But I said, this was fantastic.
Excellent.
She makes little in-jokes about the show.
Excellent.
Yeah, she
Let's
did a
get
really
some
good job.
more Lindsay on there.
Really.
Actually, I got to get some more Manster on there too.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
Have you ever stopped reading for a while and then come back? Yes, several times. I stopped for a while when I turned 17 due to poor state of comics in the 90s. He says Clone Saga, etc. Spent the next 10 years in and out of comics, going through spurts of interest. It wasn't until I was settled and married that I got back into it full time. And do you see yourself reading when you're 80 years old? Yes, hopefully.
A lot of hopefully.
Yeah. Grandpa's in there reading comic books.
Hey, you know what? That's the number one answer with that. I noticed when I got these back was hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully, or, as long as they're not, 1999 or blah, blah, whatever. But, all right, we're going to keep it Ghost in the Stratosphere related.
All right.
With Chad Smith. No, it is not the drummer for the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Not that Chad Smith.
Not that Chad Smith. This is Chad, who is one of the three Ghosts of the Stratosphere. Again, www.gotstratosphere. And check them out. Awesome show. Weekly. And, I feel like I'm doing a plug for them. Weekly show, new every week. And a bonus show first or last Friday of every month. I think it might be the first because I think they just had a bonus show. So
we'll start have to doing bonus shows.
Yeah. Remember at the beginning where I said I couldn't even handle editing every show? Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. So let's see, what does Chad have to say to these? Who are your top three currently working artists and writers? And he gave us his three writers. Tom King, again, Batman, Mr. Miracle.
Yeah.
Chip Zdarsky, who's Daredevil, and he wrote a Jughead series for Archie.
He did.
And
which made its way into Sex Criminals, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
And
it got a little meta, and they talked about him getting money from doing Archie.
Really?
Yeah, it was funny.
I actually learned this. We're going right back to Ghosts of the Stratosphere, but he did that book Sex Criminals with Matt Fraction.
Yeah, it's still going on apparently.
Now,
but what comes out once a year.
What I think they said was Fraction writes it and Zdarsky draws it.
Correct.
Okay, I didn't realize. I know Zdarsky's a writer
He's
and
a
an
fantastic artist.
Okay, so that's really cool.
Yeah,
that's cool that this guy does both. I have never read it, but he recently did. And it ended. So it was only like maybe 15 or 20 issues. He did a run of Spectacular Spider-Man.
All right. That
I keep hearing is like awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I bought one issue because there was one issue that people were really kind of hyping up. And I read it and I loved it. So I'm going to have to go back. Hopefully they just do a trade so I don't have to go back and find 15 issues of something. And he's going to be taking over Daredevil. And Chris Samney. Chris Samney is skip that. I misread. Brian Bendis.
Okay.
Brian Bendis, who is longtime Marvel guy. He was he was basically in charge of all of Marvel Universe for a long time. Wrote the Avengers, wrote Ultimate Spider-Man, wrote a ton of stuff over there. He is now working for DC. He is currently writing Superman in Action Comics. So
I'm reading a cover, which he writes, and he did Scarlet and Pearl.
Right. And years ago he did
From the Jinx World.
Jinx World.
Yeah.
Years ago he did a really good one before he was even with Marvel called Torso, which was a story about Elliot Ness when he was in Cleveland, and it was after the Capone stuff, I believe. And he basically went up against a serial killer. It's really cool. It's black and white. Awesome stuff.
Did you ever read Nailbiter, Image Comic Nailbiter?
You know what? That was
by
a book.
Joshua Williamson.
That was a book I read about 6 or 7 issues of, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And I just fell off of it somehow.
Okay, I read the whole series. Brian Michael Bendis was a character in Nailbiter.
Really?
At one point.
That book had, just to go off on a tangent real quick, Chad, before we get back to your list,
Sorry, Chad.
had an awesome idea. Was that what? It was the city filled with serial killers?
Yeah, it was Buckaroo, Oregon.
Yeah.
And a bunch of serial killers came from there. And
Right.
the whole thing was, why are these serial killers coming from this area?
And so did that ended?
It's over. Yeah, it went about, I may have this wrong. I'm going to say like 27 issues or
Okay,
something
so now
like
I feel good because I can get the trades and
yeah,
get
it was
done
it was a fun read. I really enjoyed
I
it.
read, I think, the first trade's worth. I had like the first 6 issues in I bought it at a show or something.
Yep.
Really cool. All right, so Bendis, Tom King, Chip Zdarsky. 3 artists. This is where I skipped. Chris Samney, who is awesome. He did Daredevil for a while with Mark Waid. He did the Cap series with Mark Waid. Francesco Francavilla, one of my all-time favorites.
I love him.
Francesco, Jesus, he's probably better known for covers.
Yeah.
And his own stuff he does. Years ago, Daredevil being written by Andy Diggle, I think. And when it ended, Daredevil kills Bullseye, but he's possessed by this spirit. It was not a great story arc. It was the end of that Daredevil run. So Daredevil decides after he kills Bullseye and he gets rid of this spirit that had taken control of him that was part of the Hand, the mystical ninjas, that he was going to go travel the country and leave Hell's Kitchen. And when he leaves Hell's Kitchen, he knows that he can't leave it unattended. And for other plot reasons, T'Challa, King, the Black Panther, basically, was in Hell's Kitchen. And he tells him, look, I'm going to go. Can you watch over Hell's Kitchen as Black Panther? And he does. So the book suddenly became, instead of Daredevil, the Man Without Fear, for about 15 issues, it became Black Panther, Man Without Fear. It was a really cool run, but the most notable part about it was, not the entire thing, but a good chunk of it was interior arts by Francavilla.
Right, and you gave me, or you suggested I buy one of those Legends last week.
This guy, man, I met him once. I was lucky enough to meet him at Boston Comic Con 2 years ago. He's from Italy, but he speaks fluent English. Super nice guy. I bought quite a couple things from him. I bought something off of his website. I bought he redid his own Jaws poster.
He's constantly Instagramming out posters and
he's unreal.
All kinds of
unreal
movie stuff.
Francavilla, I give you the thumbs up, Chad, because you've got great taste. And I don't know if this is just his own taste or if this is just being around Andy too much, but he has Mike Allred listed as well.
Okay.
Who is your all-time favorite artist? John Romita. He did not put Junior, so he's talking about John Romita Sr.
Okay.
Who is your all-time favorite writer? He's got a pretty good list here. Stan Lee, Brian Michael Bendis, or J.M. DeMatteis. J.M. DeMatteis, who is a really cool guy. I met him at Albany Comic Con a couple years ago. He wrote, actually, you read this, Craven's Last Hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote Craven's Last Hunt. He teamed up a lot with Keith Giffen, who's another writer. Back in the DC in the 80s, they wrote Justice League together. All-time favorite character, Lloyd, who do you think?
I'm going to say Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Who is your favorite creative team? Stan Lee and...
Kirby?
No, Steve Ditko. The original Amazing Spider-Man.
There you go.
Is there a creator whose book you will always buy? Chip Zdarsky hasn't let me down yet.
Excellent.
So he will be reading Daredevil, I'm assuming.
He must have read Howard the Duck then.
That's right. He did the Howard the Duck, too. Do you buy digital? Why or why not? I'll buy digital from Humble Bundle. And I do make use of the digital codes on books because the convenience is overwhelming. That said, at the same cost, I'll take the physical copy every day of the week instead. If digital is the same price as the hard copy to keep comic shops afloat. I'll just go to the comic shop and give them cash for my books. For reasons that don't really make sense, I value the physical copy more. I could share them with others without feeling like a thief or cyber terrorist. Don't worry, the pint's not gonna turn you over. Do you buy hardcovers trades? Rarely. I will stock up on trades through conventions or cheap Amazon sales, and occasionally come into hardcovers that way. Otherwise, I'm more of a price shopper, which means I'm getting the cheaper version. Cheaper comics means more comics. I like that.
That's right, yeah.
That's almost like a campaign slogan. If he was running for cheaper comics means more comics. What books do you own 3 or more different formats or versions? There's a lot of recent books where I bought floppies with digital codes and then picked up trades for my classroom. I think he's a teacher. I think.
Excellent.
And then there's the classic stuff. Frank Miller, Daredevil, and Batman. Most of Amazing Spider-Man's first 100 issues. McFarlane's Amazing Spidey. The Dan Slott all-red Silver Surfer run. Brian Bendis' New Avengers. Superior Foes of Spider-Man. The Spidey series from Robbie Thompson and Nick Bradshaw. Bendis Ultimate Spidey, both Peter and Miles. Brubaker's Cap. Squirrel Girl, Volume 1 through 4, Simonson's Thor, and Tom King's Vision.
Wow. Okay.
So he buys a lot of the stuff that, he doesn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, he sure does.
Do you still read books? Yes. Not as much as I'd like, though. I have to get them in over breaks or summer vacations, or it will take me 6 months to get through a book.
Mm-hmm. I feel you there.
Do you ever keep buying a book, even after you've lost interest? I buy Amazing Spidey and Daredevil regardless for collections. I dropped off during Shadowland. Shadowland is exactly what I was just talking about. Where he got possessed by the hand. It really wasn't that good. And was getting ready to go again if Charles Soule's run went any longer. Oh, he wasn't a fan of the Soule run. Otherwise, I go by creative team. And actually, he wrote a review of the last arc of Soule's run. And I only kind of brushed through it because I haven't finished it, but it wasn't super positive. So, What's your favorite non-Marvel or DC book? The new Lone Ranger book is 2 issues in and is great. I think that's Dynamite. They did a series about 10 years ago that was really good too.
Frank Avia does lots of covers for Lone Ranger.
What one book would you recommend to non-comic book readers? Brubaker Cap for movie fans. They're really cinematic stories that stretch what readers think of comics. It really depends on what that reader is looking for, though. What do you do with your old comics? They've overtaken the basement. Trades I'll take into school if they're appropriate. Do you ever reread comics? Trades or hardcovers? Which ones? Lee Ditko Ramita era Spidey is always a go-to. Miller's Born Again Year 1 is great. Walt Simonson's Thor always reminds me of what great about comics. I have a Walt Simonson's Thor omnibus, and I'm afraid to read it because if I put it in my lap, I don't think my dick's going to survive.
I bought some of those digital myself.
Yeah, I think it weighs about fucking 78 pounds.
Yeah, the digital weighs a couple ounces.
I lost myself here. Hold on 1 second. Okay, here we go. Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics gets a reread every few years, too. Do you own original art of your favorite artists? Sadly, no. I have some signatures and some personalized sketches from non-fave artists from cons, but none of the big ones. How often and which Comic Cons do you attend? I worked for years at a local Comic Con 3 times a year until very recently, and will travel to work toy, card, or gaming conventions for a buddy still. I got to meet Todd McFarlane at one of those. Anyways, lots of cons for me. They're great for cheap trades. Does your partner understand and support your habit? Yes and no. My wife watches the movies but reads real books instead. Have you ever stopped reading for a while, then come back into the fold? When I was a teenager in the mid-'90s, I stopped when comics started to suck and I discovered girls. They seemed the more rewarding investment.
I heard about this mid-'90s.
Yeah, well, I think the girls being the more rewarding investment is also very true. The Marvel Knight relaunch caused me to trickle into a comic shop, and I've been going back ever since. Marvel Knight relaunch was in the early 2000s, late 90s. Marvel reached out to Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti, who had their own company, I think called Event.
All right.
And they basically gave them Punisher, Daredevil, and there was a couple other characters, and they put them all under this Marvel Knights line. And even though they had their own company, it was like they freelance for Marvel, but they put them in charge of those books. And the Daredevil book ended up being the Guardian Devil that Kevin Smith wrote.
Okay.
And Quesada eventually ended up becoming the editor-in-chief at Marvel. So it worked out very well for them. Do you see yourself still reading comics when you're 80 years old? Yep, if and only if my eyes and the rest of me make it that long. So another honest answer.
The next one here is from Nicholas Sparks at Horror News Network.
Banks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nicholas,
what did I say?
Nicholas Sparks.
How the?
That's the guy that wrote, I think, the
I got to
Notebook.
put my glasses on.
I think he wrote The Notebook.
Yeah.
Nick.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Nick. Nicholas Banks, www.horrornewsnetwork.net.
Nick has been on the show several times with us
Yeah.
here. He's a great guy. We love him. And Nick is just a super smart guy. He's a high school teacher.
All right. Top 3 currently working artists and writers, Tom King, Brian Michael Bendis, and Jason Aaron. Finally, I see a Jason Aaron.
Jason Aaron. Oh.
Yeah, he's on my list. And an artist, Mike Del Mundo, again. Olivier Coppel, I'm not sure how to say it.
Yeah, I think I met him once at the Comic-Con, speaks no English. He's Brazilian.
Yep.
He was one of Marvel's like hotshot young gun guys in in the mid 2000s, late 2000s. I can't remember which one of the one with the Skrulls. The one where the Skrulls were Secret Invasion. I'm fairly certain Coipiel drew that.
All right. I'm going to have to defer to you on that.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to my shitty memory. But he drew, when Marvel used to yearly do the big events, he drew one of them, and I'm pretty sure it was Secret Invasion.
And the last one, Chris Somney. Who's your favorite all-time artist? John Buscema. All-time
He's
favorite.
come up several times.
Yes, he has. Writer, Alan Moore. Again, several times. Favorite character, The Incredible Hulk. Is the first Hulk there. Who's your favorite creative team? Perez and Wolfman. Now that was Infinite Crisis, right?
Yes, Crisis on
Infinite
Infinite Earths.
Yeah, sorry, I got to say it that way.
Because Infinite Crisis, well, otherwise people
That
would get
was the
it.
other one, yeah.
Infinite Crisis was a real thing years later, yeah.
Yep. A creator whose book you'll always buy is Warren Ellis. Yeah, very good. Do you buy digital? No, but I do get some for free. Yep. Still can't accept reading them on a screen. Okay.
Nick is funny. I want to throw this out there because we've discussed digital like when he's come over to record. And like at one point I was telling him how like, some of the digital stuff, if you have an iPad,
It's good quality.
isn't that bad. It's good quality. It's easy to guide through. And Nick is, he's I'd say probably like mid 40s, and he's like really like he wants to believe it and he wants to try
believe it. Yeah.
So I remember at one time he texted me out of nowhere and said, "John, what was the I think the app that you said you use or something?" And I said, "Oh, you thinking about doing it, Nick?" And he's like, "I'm thinking about it." And I think I gave him the answer or whatever it was. And then like a couple months later, he came back to record again. I said, "Did you go digital?" He goes, "No, I can't do it."
Here's why I still do some digital myself. I have tons of digital in storage, but when I read them, when I take my kids to sporting practices and stuff, rather than go home or just sit in the car, take out the tablet and just read some comics.
Yeah.
While I'm waiting for them
I've
to
done it for
finish.
A few years ago when Lindsay was
It's easier than bringing books.
Lindsay was going through some health stuff. I was at a lot of doctor's appointments, and I'll tell you what, man, I read a lot of stuff.
Yep.
I'm not bringing a stack of comics with me to sit in a waiting room for 3 hours. Yeah.
Exactly. Hardcovers and trades, yes. Mostly the ones I buy these days are trades. Books that you own 3 or more different formats: Watchmen, Sandman, and Teen Titans. Wow, Sandman.
Yeah.
I have Sandman all digital, every single volume. Do you ever keep buying a book after you've lost interest? I used to keep buying to complete a run, but if the creative team changes, I usually drop the book. Wow. That's so true. I mean, that's why I don't really read a lot of Marvel stuff.
But it's so hard at this point, like you said, like with Marvel stuff. So, like, perfect example. You jump onto the brand new Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it's Nick Spencer and Ryan Otley. And Ryan Otley, after 6 issues, is gone.
Yeah.
And then you get Humberto Ramos for 5 issues. And then Otley comes back at 12.
Right.
So do you hope that it's going to be Otley again, or do you say, fuck it, I'm dropping it?
I'll get into this when I get to my list.
Okay, all right.
Do you still read books? Yes, but it's hard to find time, especially with all these comics. Exactly. What's your favorite non-Marvel or DC book? Paper Girls. Very good answer. If you're into mind-bending time travel stories, I totally recommend Paper Girls.
You lent me the trade that I never read.
Yeah, by Brian K. Vaughan and Cliff Chang. Beautiful art and intense story. Paper Girls, all right. Monstrous, also My Friend Dahmer. Anything that shows what the medium can do outside the traditional superhero fare. I love that answer because comics can do so much more than any other medium.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The way
and with no
things are laid out on a page, the way you can do, flashbacks, flash forwards, you can do color, saturation, a different color.
Yep.
It's just amazing. What do you do with your old comics? If I like them, I keep them. I'm also saving many of my full runs for my kids. I also sell a lot. We're saving stuff for our kids. They'll never care. I'm sorry. I have the same answer, but yeah. Do you ever reread comics or hardcovers? Which ones? Usually not, but I go back to the classics sometimes if it's been a while. Usually Alan Moore books.
Yeah.
It's a good one to go back to. Do you own your own digital art or your own art of your favorite artist? I have 1 or 2 comic pages by Steve Dillon. Oh, cool. From Preacher. I also have some convention sketches from Dan Brereton. And I like to get more sketches, but it's tough to do this at shows. I think I'll talk about that a little bit when I get to my list.
Tough to do it at shows. You're a fucking... you're not... You don't worry about that.
How often and what shows do you go to? New York, Rhode Island, Wizard World, and Connecticut shows. So I'm assuming every year. How does your partner feel? She'll occasionally read some comics or collected issues. Well, that's good. They understand it, but my wife gets frustrated with the space they take up. Yeah, I hear you there. Yeah. Did you ever stop reading and come back? I never stopped totally, but I did start selling my entire collection when I was in college. And I have since bought back all the ones I regretted selling. I like that. And do you see yourself reading when you're 80? Yes, I think it will take me that long to catch up.
Yeah, I agree with Nick fully on that one.
Yeah, that's 100% agreed.
Thank you, Nick. Check Nick out at horrornewsnetwork.net. He writes a ton of articles and reviews, and those are the guys that sponsor CT Horror Fest,
yep.
And or that actually created CT Horror Fest that we sponsored, and we've been really tight with them. All right. Ronald is Ron. We're going to just call him Ron. I almost threw out last name there. I don't want to do that because this is just a guy I know from the comic store. He's a friend of mine. Ron is a guy I met at the comic store. I've known him for a few years, so we talk all the time. And yep.
Hey, Ron.
Ron, what's going on?
You probably don't know who I am.
This is the Manster. Who's your top 3 current working artists and writers? Mark Bagley. Mark Bagley is awesome. David Finch. And Ethan Van Sciver. Or Sciver. Off the top of his head, but definitely subject to change. There are a lot of good artists, which makes me wonder why Marvel uses so many bad ones. For writers, I'm currently really enjoying Jeff Johns. Jeff Johns, very much like Brian Bendis.
I think he's written everything at DC for the last.
He was very much the
10 years
he was the
more.
Brian Bendis of DC. And as a matter of fact, that went as far as to they put him in charge of like some of the movie stuff. They also fired him from that position. Charles Soule. Who, again, if you don't dig his Daredevil, Chad from...
he's
from
so
Ghost,
prolific.
He is prolific.
So
Letter
stuff.
44, which I haven't finished, but I really enjoy. His Darth Vader series is awesome.
I still have to read that.
It's ending, too. It's I think it's on issue 20...
Is someone else picking it up? Or
no,
is it...
I think they're going to do a anthology series instead. So instead of it being like a linear story of Darth Vader between, Revenge of the Sith and New Hope, I think it's going to be random Vader stories.
With random writers? Or?
I don't know that.
Okay.
I don't know that. And Al Ewing. Al Ewing has been brought up a few times already. Who is your all-time favorite artist? Rob Liefeld. Just kidding, Mark Bagley.
Feet.
Who is your all-time favorite writer? I wouldn't say I have an all-time favorite writer. Okay. Lloyd. Who's his all-time favorite character?
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Who's your favorite creative team? I got to go with Robert Kirkman and Ryan Ottley. Everything about that book, he didn't put it here, but he's talking about Invincible, just flat worked, and it seemed like they had fun doing it.
Yeah.
I agree. Great book. Is there a creator whose book you will always buy? I would be more inclined to blanket follow an artist than a writer, as good artists tend to be consistently good, but good writers still crank out some stinkers. That said, I don't really follow any creator blindly.
It's a good point.
Yeah. Do you buy digital? Why or why not? No, I want the physical book. Plus, I hate reading comics on my phone, although I've tried it on the Marvel app. Yeah, Ron,
no, I don't do the phone for sure.
Ron, get an iPad if you're going to do that, or get a tablet of some sort. Do you buy hardcovers, trades, graphic novels? Absolutely, but I don't wait for comics to come out as a trade. I only buy them that way when it's an older story that I missed when it originally came out. What books do you own 3 or more different formats or versions? None.
Congratulations.
Yeah, really. Do you still read books? In theory, LOL, I have a huge pile of books I plan on reading that I never seem to get around to. I think that's the story of most of us on this list here. Do you ever keep buying a book even after you lost interest? I definitely used to and still do on occasion, but I've been better about stopping once I'm not having fun anymore. What's your favorite non-Marvel or DC book? Currently, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which I've heard many people say is really cool. I'm not connected to that property,
right?
So it might not work for me. But I've heard many people say that book rocks.
Okay.
Of all time, probably Battle Chasers. Wow. I am holding out hope that Joe Mad will finish it. Haha. Battle Chase. Joe Madureira was this really manga-y artist that was popular in the late 90s.
All right.
And he started this book called Battle Chasers. And then he ended up starting his own video game company. And the book at the time was like this hot book, Battle Chasers. I think it only got to like issue 4 or something. And it stopped at that point. And I think for years he's always saying he's going to go back to 5. That's kind of the haha joke, is that I think it's never going to happen. What one book would you recommend to non-comic book readers and why? This is probably the toughest question, he says. Probably the original Marvel Zombies. Fun, gruesome, fairly standalone, plus zombies are big right now. And that is true. What do you do with your old comics? Store them and fret about running out of space.
Yes.
Do you ever reread any comics? Which ones? I plan on rereading all my comics, otherwise I get rid of them. I have reread Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, Infinity Gauntlet, Ultimates 2. Those are great, by the way, Mark Millar. Those are basically what the Avengers movies, especially the first one, are based on.
All right.
High on the list to reread is The Authority, another one that's just fucking incredible. Forever Evil, Secret Wars, and the original run of the Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts is the book I was telling you about earlier with that twist at the end.
Yep.
Kurt Busiek and Mark Bagley, which again... do you own original art of your fave artists? And if so, examples? Not yet, but I really want some original art. How often and which Comic-Cons do you attend? I've only been to one so far in New Jersey, but I had a lot of fun and can't wait to go to do more. Does your partner understand, support your habit? Definitely supports and will read something if I ask or recommend, but isn't actively into comics. Have you ever stopped reading for a while, then got back into the fold? From 2000 to 2005-ish, I got into Warhammer Fantasy and then into Cars. Got back into comics due to nostalgia. Do you see yourself still reading comics when you're 80 years old? I hope to be living comics via some sweet VR.
True.
But really, I hope they're still making good comics, and then that I am still able to enjoy them. Nice. So that is my buddy Ron.
I liked his answer too about his was his wife reading what he suggests.
Yes.
Yeah. No,
I've tried that before.
Yeah.
I usually
doesn't work.
I get fart sounds.
One more here from me. This is from Mark Mastel from BingCon that I think we talked about earlier. www.bingcomiccon.org. Top 3 currently working artists: Mike Mignola, James Herron, and Sean Murphy. Excellent. I love that. Writers: Scott Snyder, Gerard Way, and John Arcudi.
That's cool. Gerard Way, the
Umbrella Academy,
which they just dropped the trailer for. It's going to be a Netflix show. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
Snyder, obviously Batman.
Yeah.
The whole New 52.
Arcudi does a bunch of the Hellboy stuff.
Favorite all-time artist: John Byrne. Favorite writer: Jack Kirby. All-time favorite character: all right, Swamp Thing.
Yeah. Nice. See, a little different. Yep.
Who's your favorite creative team? There we go. More Swamp Thing. More Bissett and Totalbin. They did Saga of the Swamp Thing, like the first 4 volumes, maybe something like that.
Yep. Until Veach took over, and some of them were still involved at that point too.
Yep. Is there a creator whose book you'll always buy? Mike Mignola. Excellent.
I can deal with that. And we are actually in. This year is the 25th year anniversary of Hellboy.
And I'll tell you, I have recently bought every one of the new Hellboy omnibus.
You're doing those?
Yeah, the whole chronological through. There's 4 omnibuses and then 2 short stories of Hellboy.
Okay.
So I've got all those. Do you buy digital? Why or not? No. I want to be able to hold the book in my hands and feel it. Hardcovers, yes. Do you own 3 or more versions of anyone? Hellboy, Wake the Devil, Manhunter Saga, Saga of the Swamp Thing, and Ronin. Yeah, so he's got a lot there.
Ronin is Frank Miller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Do you still read the books? Yes, constantly. Well, I wish I could say that. Do you keep buying a book after you've lost interest? No. This sounds like, he can make a decision right there. It's like he just knows stuff. That's what I like
Besides
about Mark.
being Comic-Con, Mark is also an established artist.
Is he?
Who's done some books, indie stuff. He did a book, John showed me it, and we talked about it when we had him on the radio show, called Dogs of War.
Oh, right.
He's been around the industry, and again, one of the nicest guys on earth, too.
Yeah, he's a good guy. What's your favorite non-Marvel or non-DC book? Hellboy. What's the one book you would recommend to a non-comic book reader? The Dark Knight. Good one. That's popped up a couple times.
Yeah.
What do you do with your old comics? Store them forever. So he must have a lot. Do you ever reread any comics? Yes, Saga of the Swamp Thing, Watchmen, Ronin, BPRD, Hellboy series, and Danse Macabre, Alpha Flight. So he's got a lot. Do you own original art? Guy, he's got a lot. Holy crap. I don't think I could read this whole list.
give us a couple.
Yeah. Guy Davis, pages from BPRD, Nevermen and the Zombies That Ate the World, John Byrne, Steve Bissett, Varney the Vampire, Swamp Thing pages. Nice. I wish I had some of that. Scout, Sorted sketches and covers, Mike Mignola, Mark Badger, Mike Zulli, Tim Truman, Flint Henry. He's got a lot of stuff, but you said he's
an artist.
We discovered before.
He's buddies with Bissett too, so I'm sure
Yeah.
they probably know people,
How often and which cons do you attend? A few a year. Big Apple, Plastic City, Terrificon, and BingCon. Bing Comic Con.
Yeah, he's being modest. He runs Big Comic Con.
Right. Does your partner understand and support? Yes, she supports it and admires the art, but doesn't read them. Have you ever stopped reading for a while? Yes, when money's tight. Understood. And do you see yourself still reading when you're 80 years old? I hope so.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, thank you, Mark.
And again, I want to put it out there. If you've never been to Bing Comic Con, check their website out. We here at The Pint love it. We record there every year.
Go to Bing.
It is awesome. This was your first year, and you dug it. And you
it was
brought
great.
Sophie, she dug it, and me and John dig it. And Mark, you put on a fantastic
I even
show.
talked to an artist there. It was a couple, a man and a woman. They were together, and they said they just looked forward to this one every year.
Yeah.
It was their favorite one to go to. It was laid back.
My
They
only
loved the
problem with Bing
people.
Con is not 2 days long.
Right.
If it was 2 days, it would be beautiful. It's beautiful as it is, but it should be 2 days. Mark, I've been telling you this. Listen to me. All right. Next up is Lewis Perry. Lewis is from the Angry Geeks show. That is a podcast and public access TV show in the Massachusetts, Western Massachusetts area. They're all over the place. They have several stations up there that play their show, and the Earplug Podcast Network is where you can find their podcast. We've been friends with these guys for a while, Lewis and Jeremy, and you may remember on site Jamie, who is the Wonder Woman cosplayer. Have you ever seen her?
Oh, yeah.
Very, very nice girl and very impressive Wonder Woman cosplayer.
Great Wonder Woman.
And Lewis is a huge DC guy. Lewis is a diehard DC guy, and in his house they film he has a comic book room, kind of like what I have, but bigger and able to sit in. He calls it the Geek Lair, so it's got a really cool thing. So I messaged Lewis and said, let's get some of these answers. Who's your top three currently working writers and artists? I think he missed the writers and artists, so he just put down David Finch, Scott Snyder, and Amanda Conner. Amanda Conner is just fantastic. If I don't know if you're a fan or not, but
I'm not too familiar.
she does Harley Quinn.
She does.
Currently, she's married to Jimmy Palmiotti, who writes. She's the artist, and she's just got a style that's I don't want to say cheesecake because it's not cheesecake, but she's a great artist. Who is your all-time favorite artist? And unfortunately, this gentleman just passed away like 2 months ago. Norm Breyfogle. Norm Breyfogle was probably predominantly known for his Batman stuff in the 80s. He did, I think, a run on Detective, and I think he was like one of the main artists. When I was reading Batman, when I was in early high school, 8th grade, he was one of the artists on it.
All right.
Who is your all-time favorite writer? Denny O'Neil. Denny O'Neil is Green Arrow, Batman. He's one of the legends of DC comics period because he's been around, but DC very important to it. All-time favorite character, Green Lantern, and I'm assuming he's talking about Hal Jordan.
It's the first one there.
Who's your favorite creative team? Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams. They did a lot of the Green Arrow stuff, and Neil Adams is omnipresent at every con we've ever been to. Is there a creator whose book you will always buy? Mike Grell. Mike Grell's done a bunch of stuff. He might be...
I don't know Mike.
Mike Grell might be most known for, in terms of superhero comics, for doing Green Arrow, the Longbow Hunters, which was a book that was darker for the time, and it definitely influenced the Arrow television show.
Okay.
So that version of Green Arrow is very heavily... He wore the hood, which he doesn't normally wear. He usually wears that Robin Hood hat.
Yeah.
He wore the hood in that. It's a very cool series. And then he did the book for a long time after that. Do you buy digital? Why or why not? No, not the same. I've read digital. It's just not the same to me. Do you buy hardcovers, trades, or graphic novels? Yes. What books do you own 3 of? 3 or more different formats. Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, Death of Superman, Blackest Night, and Green Lantern Emerald Twilight. Emerald Twilight, I think, was the series where Hal burns the sun out and becomes a bad guy. becomes parallax. He becomes obsessed with the power of the Green Lantern. Do you still read books, novels, nonfiction, etc.? I love the fact that he just puts no.
No.
He doesn't even try to go, I
it.
want to get around to him. No. He's
Don't
like,
even
"Fuck it."
try.
Do you ever keep buying a book even after you've lost interest? Yes, that's all he put. What's your favorite non-Marvel or DC book? Indie? I thought this was a great answer because it's way out there. I Play the Bad Guy. Have you ever read that?
I did. It was a 5-issue series by Alex Cormack.
Alex Cormack.
And I forget the writer. I'm sorry.
Andy Arnott.
Okay, yeah.
Andy
that's it.
Arnott. So these are like local guys. So he actually put like a super indie.
Excellent.
Alex Cormack is the current artist on a book called Sync. For Comics Tribe. And I have pieces of Alex Cormack work in my comic room.
Right.
This guy is just, he's awesome.
He's good.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
He's doing a book, I think, what's the book?
Train 8 he does.
Is it Weed Magic?
Weed Magic. Yeah, that sounds right.
He's doing one about like guys on pot. Just fantastic stuff. And just the fact that he's on here, it's not, Hellboy or something else.
Right.
He went indie. What one book would you recommend to non-comic book readers and why? Blue Devil Volume 1. We talked about Blue Devil on the last show. Ian Ziering has recently been hired to play Blue Devil in the Swamp Thing television show because it's what a comic book series should be. Fun, action-packed, and over the top. Plus, there is only one Blue Devil.
Nice.
What do you do with your comics? Store them forever. Keep for your children. And he put, have you not seen the Geek Lair? So if you watch the show, you've seen it. And he put, store them forever.
Yeah.
Do you ever reread any comics? Which ones? Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, Death of Superman, Blackest Night, Green Lantern, Emerald Twilight. The same list that he has 3 of, he rereads. So obviously. Do you own original art? No, but I do. Well, he put no, but I think he meant yes. Joe St. Pierre. Okay, he doesn't have original art, meaning pages. Joe St. Pierre, he has an Aquaman, a Hawkman, a Flash, and a Superman. Chris Campagna, Green Lantern Kyle, Green Lantern Hal, Green Arrow. Jack Purcell, Superman, Randy Macho Man Savage. Ian Nichols, Lobo, and Ron Larry Jr., Green Lantern Hal. How often and which Comic-Cons do you attend? Almost monthly, he goes. Rhode Island Comic-Con, Comic-Con, again, not Pinko Comic-Con, Comic-Con, the one that's held in Foxwoods. Terrificon, the other one, the great one that we love so much, that's held in Uncasville there. It's not great. Mitch would yell at me if I said that, by the way.
Right.
It's not great. It's terrific.
Right.
Garden State Comic-Con or Garden State Comic Fest, Super Mega Fest, which I think is up in Massachusetts somewhere, East Coast Comic-Con, Northeast Comic-Con, and Empire State Comic-Con, to name a few. These guys...
He's a con goer.
He's a con goer, and they are always filming at cons, and these guys run panels with stars. Like the Rhode Island Comic-Con, I believe it was Rhode Island, they had several actors from The Walking Dead, and these guys moderated it.
Oh, wow.
So these guys are big time.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
Jealous.
Yeah, they do some really cool stuff. Does your partner understand and support your habit? Yes, and again, have you not seen the Geek Lair? And no, she is not a fan. Have you ever stopped reading for a while, then come back? Never. And do you see yourself still reading comics when you're 80 years old? Yes.
All right.
All right. So now we saved the most verbose for the last. This is the last of the
Oh, we still have the fan ones?
One more.
Okay.
One more. Rob Stewart. Let me start tearing this apart. Because it goes, I think, 2 pages longer than everybody else's.
For each answer.
Every answer is chock full. But you know what? We love you, Stu.
All right.
All right. So again, from the podcast Goes to the Stratosphere, go to gotstratosphere.com. This is Rob Stewart. There's 3 guys, and this is Rob. Who's your top 3 currently working writers and artists? These guys have a boner for Chip Zdarsky. So
They
Chip
love
Zdarsky, David Aja.
He's drawn boners, by the way, in
I'm
Sex
assuming
Criminals. Yeah. Plenty of boners in that one.
They do a segment on Goes to the Stratosphere called The Read Pile, where they, I think weekly pretty much, pick a book, a trade or a story arc to read, and they did Sex Criminals recently. Oh, yeah. And Stu is kind of like, Stu was on our radio show. We had him on one time, and he said that he felt like John was his spirit animal, Sir John.
Okay. Yeah.
Because he's kind of like the surlier guy of the bunch.
Oh,
yeah. And it's funny because he really likes Sex Criminals. And there's been other books they've read where he's like the one out where he's like, no, bullshit.
Yeah.
He really likes Sex Criminals.
Yeah,
so I think that's
book.
part of it. Zdarsky, David Aja, and Mike Mignola. And wait, was I supposed to do 3 of each? Crap. Who is your all-time favorite artist? Tim Sale, probably. Everything he does looks magnificent and has such enormous personality. The topic of artists is pretty fluid for me and depends on the day. and there are dozens of greats, so leaving so many out hurts my soul. But I'd hesitantly put Sale at number 1. His stuff is breathtaking. Who is your all-time favorite writer? Now, this is ridiculously hard because I'm an asshole enough to say, I like so-and-so, but X wasn't that great. And I couldn't probably do that for everyone. Backed into a corner, I'll say Mark Waid. He wrote or co-wrote my 2 top books ever, Kingdom Come and 52. 2 really good books. I love 52. 52, did you ever read that?
Never did.
52 filled in a missing year. So the Infinite Crisis happened, ended, and then the books that came out after Infinite Crisis all had on the cover 1 year later. Okay. So Infinite Crisis ends in a certain way, and then you go to buy your books the next week, and every book has jumped a year. So you're like, fuck. So all of a sudden,
in that year?
Certain things happened. Like Batman was gone from Gotham, and I think it was Two-Face was watching the city. Green Arrow, Ollie suddenly was the mayor of Star City. All these changes, and then you start reading those books, and it's kind of like a fresh point, and there's a mystery to it because you're like, how did we get to this point? 52 was a series that came out that covered what happened in that year. The 52 weeks that happened in that year. Very, very cool stuff.
That's a cool concept.
It had different writers, too. It wasn't just Mark Waid. Grant Morrison, there were several guys who did that. All right, so he has a bunch of other runs I adore, speaking of Mark Waid again. Daredevil, Flash, Fantastic Four, even if he also has put out some frustratingly mediocre stuff. All right, all-time favorite character. I mean, Spider-Man is who I believe is the best character of all time. He has the most nuance and depth, and good Spidey is better than any other character in comics. That said, my favorite character is Jubilee. I will read any book Marvel publishes that she is in, and I am most passionate about her use in comics. Fight me. Jubilee is my jam. Jubilee. She throws fireworks from her hands.
I know who Jubilee is.
Yeah. I have a soft spot for her only because Logan, I'm a fan of Wolverine, and he always had like a thing. Not a thing. He always had like a father-daughter thing with her, which I always liked a lot. But I think she's a vampire now.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to fight you, Stu, but I don't know. I don't know about that. Who's your favorite creative team? Now you've got me thinking of runs on titles that I love where writer and artist complemented each other so well to be a perfect storm. So I'd call it a toss-up of Whedon Cassidy, John Cassidy and Joss Whedon on Astonishing X-Men, Scott Collins and Jeff Johns from Flash, and Bendis and Bagley from Ultimate Spider-Man. Is there a creator whose book you will always buy? Always is a strong enough word that I'm hesitant to say yes. I buy so little. Do you buy digital? I do, and I really love the digital medium in regards to comics. There's always that weird feeling about how I could lose my collection someday, but it's wonderful to not have to store all those books. Do you buy hardcovers, trades? I prefer softcover trades just for the price point, but I have several comics in hardcover when that has been the only format available. I'm not opposed to them. I'm just cheap. What books do you own 3 or more copies of? Different formats. I actually have to ponder this because there are a bunch I own in 2 formats, digital and issues or digital and trade. But 3, honestly, nothing I can think of. I can't recall any books I currently own in both single issues and trade. Do you still read books? No, but not because I'm opposed to books or anything. I'm just lazy and don't have the time. Do you ever keep buying a book even after you've lost interest? No. I would have way back in the day of my youth when I bought everything. But I have only just recently this year gotten back into buying single issues. And I have not had any qualms about dropping books the moment I found them a bit tedious. Flash, Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps, Titans are examples.
Good man.
They cost too much to keep going with them if I'm not enamored. What's your favorite non-Marvel or DC book? All-time Savage Dragon, Hellboy, and a bunch of manga. Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball, and then DBZ. So I don't know manga, so I don't know what the fuck that is. Azumanga Dao, sorry if I'm saying these wrong, Stu. Rurouni Kenshin, and Black Cat. From one of the past few years, Sex Criminals is up there now.
Yeah.
So you dig that book, right?
Sex Crims, yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
What one book would you recommend to non-comic book readers when my wife finally relented to read a comic book after years of pressure? I went through this trying to find the perfect one. I ended up deciding on Batman The Long Halloween. I figured it has it all. Great art, classic characters and themes, brilliant writing, a grounded tale that isn't too cosmic in scope, and people genuinely seem to dig mysteries.
That's a good answer.
That is a good answer. Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb. What do you do with your old comics? Well, I lost almost every comic I owned from my youth during my 20s. So that's several thousand I can't speak to. All my holographic 90s covers that were going to pay for my retirement. No! Currently, they just sit in my closet. I have no real designs on them. But not having children, I feel bad if they just got thrown out after my wife and I are gone. Donating them sounds like a good idea, pardon me. Maybe I'll contact children's hospitals and see if they want them at some point. Do you ever reread any comic books? There are some I reread with some regularity. Kingdom Come, 52. Long Halloween, God Loves, Man Kills, which is a classic X-Men storyline that they based loosely or kind of based X-Men 2, the movie, on. Astonishing X-Men, Ultimate Spider-Man, Born Again, Daredevil, Hellboy, Savage Dragon, Dragon Ball, and again, he's going to make me say this fucking word, Azumanga Dao, etc., etc. Otherwise, I check out every now and then when the mood strikes me. Do you own any original art? I actually don't. I have no idea where I'd even put it. I guess I'd hang it in the comics room, but I just never felt motivated to ask an artist to draw me a thing. Lines at cons are long, and I don't want to hold them up while someone draws me a picture. That's very polite, but that's what they're there for, Rob.
Yeah, right.
Pay them some money. How often and which Comic-Cons do you attend? Pittsburgh has a few, namely Three Rivers Con and Steel City Con. The only out-of-area con I ever went to was Wizard World St. Louis during my cousin's bridal shower weekend. Cons are weird for me because I feel like a schmuck talking to creators I like, and then in parentheses, hey, I like your work. Thanks. Okay, I'll quit bothering you now. And
I know exactly what you feel there. Exactly.
I feel it too.
I get around it.
I've had that awkward moment.
Yeah.
One of my most awkward was, and he was saying it earlier, he's a big Mark Waid fan. Mark Waid, I don't know if that dude, like, because I've met a lot of cool comic creators, and I know I've heard things about Mark Waid. I think he's personality deficient.
Oh, no.
He was very, and Brian Azzarello.
You know who was cool? Jason Latour. He was cool.
Yeah, I met Jason Latour at a, what the fuck was that? New York.
Yeah, I met him in
Not New York Comic Con.
Yeah, you're the special.
Yeah, the New York Special Edition. He was very cool. All right, so let's see. Lack the focus to dig through boxes and boxes for stuff. I will just talk myself into wanting. Also, after Wizard World St. Louis, I fell into collecting pop vinyls. Oh no, another one, Lloyd.
Don't do it. No, just stay away.
And Kotobukiya statues. I have a couple of those too. And that was an expensive interlude in my life. Does your partner understand, support your habit? Ha 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 ha. Understand, no, but she supports it. She has even been on the podcast a few times and reads books for the show, but she doesn't usually like them. We have strikingly few things in common as far as hobbies go. Have you ever stopped reading for a while and then come back into the fold? A bunch, most notably during the last two to 3 years of high school, when I went through the typical, am I too old for this thing? Got back into it in college, though.
Never too old.
And hell, from 2005 to 2017, I pretty much only bought some digital stuff in trades. I never bought issues, but I stayed engaged enough that I wouldn't say I was out at any given point. I had just shifted my focus. Do you see yourself still reading comics when you're 80? There's a morbid joke here about not seeing myself alive at 80 years old, but assuming I am and have my faculties about me, I don't see why not. They have defined such a large aspect of my life so far. Though God, who knows what comics will cost in 40 years. Probably $20 an issue. Woof. All right. Thank you, Stu, for that very verbose, and he even admitted it was verbose, answer.
All right.
All right. So, Lloyd, I am so tired of talking in this episode.
Boy. If you're still with us, you still got to suffer through John and mine.
You know, we're only at an hour and 30 minutes. It's not even that long of an episode.
Wow.
It's not a lot. I think this went well, though. I mean, I'm hoping people are listening to this going, that's cool to hear this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
And you know what? You have the right on Twitter at Panic Comics. If you hated this episode, go, please don't ever do something like that again.
It's a lot of entries.
Yeah. That's why. Okay, so why don't you read your list off? I'll finish off with mine.
All right.
And then we'll say goodbye to the good people.
All right, here we go. All right, so this is the Manster, Lloyd. Who is your top 3 current working artists? Rick Remender. I really like him.
Fear Agent.
Death. Some of the current ones: Death or Glory, Black Science, 7 to Eternity.
He wrote one of the only runs of Venom I ever liked.
Oh yeah,
the Agent Venom.
Never
when
read
it was
Venom.
Flash Thompson. It was great.
Yeah, Low, Deadly Class. There's a lot, and all my answers were going to be geared mostly toward indie stuff. You're not going to find very many Marvel.
Yeah, you're not a Marvel
stuff.
DC guy for the most
But
part.
there's a little. Rick Remender, Jeff Lemire. I love Jeff Lemire. Right now, I'm enjoying Black Hammer, Royal City, Gideon Falls. He's done several others over the years, not to mention the graphic novels that he puts out, pretty frequently.
One of my favorites. I don't read all of his stuff, but he did one a couple years ago called Trillium.
Yeah, Trillium was fantastic.
Trillium was so good.
Yeah, Roughneck, Essex County.
Weird
There's
book.
so many. And Jason Aaron, Southern Bastards, Thor, He did the Star Wars for a while. A lot of Jason Aaron stuff.
Jason Aaron's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
We'll get to
I was glad to see someone else had Jason Aaron. Now for artists, Sean Murphy, Sean Gordon Murphy, if that's what he likes to be called now. Batman, White Knight, Tokyo Ghost, The Wake. I can't remember.
Punk Rock Jesus?
Yeah, Punk Rock Jesus. Francesco Francavilla. I know he came up already. He doesn't do a lot of books. He does a lot of covers, and he does occasional books. He did one of my favorite Batman stories, Black Mirror.
Black Mirror, yeah.
Yeah, he had a part of that. Him and Jock did that. And Matteo Scalera, which many of you may not know, but he's the artist on Black Science with Rick Remender.
Okay, I've never read that.
Fantastic, just beautiful. And Dean White colors that for I think it was Mike Kelleher, like Dean White.
Yeah, that was way early.
Who's your favorite all-time artist? Now, initially I put Jack Kirby, but I have a Jack Kirby book that we bought at Terrificon a year ago.
Yeah.
The History of Kirby. I mean, it's fantastic. I love it. It's beautiful. He was like in the field of comics. You know, he was
Trendsetter.
Yeah, trendsetter. Yeah, something like that. But I don't read a lot of Jack Kirby. So, favorite all-time artist, boy, out of the ones I just said, I think those would be my top three. I guess I would go with Sean Murphy. I just love his stuff. Who's your favorite writer?
Did Sean Murphy do Chrononauts?
Yeah, he did.
I love
with
that.
Mark Millar.
Yeah, Mark Millar.
He did
Yep.
Chrononauts.
That was a good story.
I've got some art from him. We'll get to that later. Favorite writer. I guess I'm going to have to go with Remender here because I just pretty much love everything that he puts out.
I haven't read everything like you've read, but Fear Agent is enough for me to say, this guy, if that was all he ever wrote, you could point to that and go, because that story, man, that thing, it starts at one point and it takes so many turns, and the way it ends.
I haven't read through all of Fear Agent, but I've read enough to know, and I'm continually buying the books as they come out.
Well, it's over. It's long over.
No.
Oh,
They've re-released the books.
Oh, okay.
And they're coming out with new versions of them. I've got it digitally, so I've read a bunch of it digitally, but I stopped reading the digital. I'm going back to the actual books, and I'm going to start over.
Awesome book.
Favorite writer. All right, so this is one that I added in just for my own. I wanted to know favorite writer and artist combination. Like they do it all.
Oh, okay.
All right, so my favorite of those are Jeff Lemire. He does the writing, he does the art. Terry Moore, Mike Mignola, and Mark Schultz. I don't know if anybody knows who that is.
Mark Schultz.
He did Xenozoic, also called, I guess, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs.
No, I'm not familiar with
fantastic. I have a big, huge omnibus. It's just great. It's black and white. It's beautiful. All-time favorite character. As much as I like Spider-Man, I don't really read Spider-Man books. I'm currently reading the Ryan Ottley book and Nick Spencer. And I would have said Batman because I've read the most of Batman. But I think my all-time favorite character is Become Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super
I
deep.
got hooked on that with the Alan Moore stuff. And I have read some of the Snyder stuff as well. And I just love the Swamp Thing.
I'm gonna give you a Pine of Comics spoiler right now.
Yeah.
So we've done the remember we did it with you.
Somebody across from me is actually wearing.
Yeah, I'm wearing a Swamp Thing shirt.
Swamp Thing.
And we did the indie Heroes and Villains episode with you.
Yes.
We did the Marvel with Jerry from Fistful of Jokes.
Yep.
And we're going to be doing the DC with Mark Mastal. We've talked to him. We're going to try to do it next month.
Excellent.
I'm going to give you a spoiler right now. My number one, this is for you listeners.
Yeah.
My number one DC hero is Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
So there's something to look forward to when you get to hear it finally.
Yep. All right. Favorite creative team. When I created this question, I was going for a team that has created a multiple number of books.
Right.
All right. Some people put, as far as my knowledge goes, I don't know everything. So some of these might have been one run, or maybe people did a lot. But I was going for ones that you just keep going back to these guys because they work really good together.
Right.
So my number one here is Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips.
Oh yeah.
Again, this is mostly indie stuff, or maybe Image stuff like that.
Sleeper.
Yeah, Sleeper.
Did you ever read Sleeper?
Sleeper. I've read some of that. Fade Out, Criminal, Kill or Be Killed.
Yeah.
When those two get together, it's fantastic.
Yeah. I strongly recommend Sleeper.
And then, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Rick Remender and Opeña.
Oh, Jerome Opeña?
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're great
He
together.
was on Fear Agent.
Fear
for a while,
Agent
yeah.
and 7 to Eternity.
Yep. Fear Agent he wasn't the only artist, but yeah.
All right. Is there a creator whose book you'll always buy? This guy's name has not shown up even one time here, but every time a book comes out by Robert Kirkman, I get it.
You don't always keep getting it though, because you dropped
I
Oblivion
don't
Song.
always
right?
keep. I dropped Oblivion Song because I'm going to eventually go to trades, and I don't want to keep getting the floppies.
Right.
I'm enjoying it, but I'm okay with just dropping it and going to trades. But I get Kirkman stuff, and I get Lemire stuff all the time, unless it's like some, I don't know, he was doing Bloodshot and
Right.
for Valiant. You know, I stopped getting that, but I always get a Lemire book when it comes out. Do you buy digital? Well, you can go on the Pine of Comics website, and if you can go into the archives and see some of my earlier articles about Manster's journey through comics, you can read all about my digital comic love. That's how I got into comics, was digital, and then I stopped pretty much buying digital.
And you, much like I think it was Chad from Ghost of the Stratosphere, you're big on the Humble Bundles, right?
I do Humble Bundle. So if I can get a terrific deal, I'll buy digital. So I bought all the Sandman, every single Sandman volume for, I think it was $5 or something like that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So yeah, I had to get it. Well, I mean, why not? Do I buy hardcovers, trades, and graphic novels? Yes, I buy all. What books do you own 3 or more different versions? Walking Dead. I get the floppies. I get the hardcovers every year, and I buy the digital. Saga, same thing. Well, slightly different. Saga, I get the floppies. I get the trades, and I get the hardcovers. And there's a couple I have 2 of, but that's it for when I get 3. Do I still read books? I really try. I can maybe get 1 or 2 books read a year, and mostly those are Stephen King books, because if you've heard the show before, I am a Stephen King fan. Do I buy a book after I've lost interest? I used to do this a lot. I would even cancel a book from my pull list, and then the week it was canceled, I'd go and buy it off the shelf.
Right.
You know? Yeah, it's crazy. But now I don't really do that anymore. I decided to drop it, and then that's it. It's done. Favorite non-Marvel or DC book? All right. So John changed this question to book. So I would say my favorite non-Marvel or DC book is Walking Dead. I just really like that. But I was going for superhero. Who's your favorite non-Marvel and non-DC superhero?
Oh, see, I don't even think that was on there.
Yeah.
I think when I read it, it was incomplete, so I wasn't sure what you meant.
Okay. Well, mine is Invincible
Yeah.
and Black Hammer, which I don't think you've read
I've
any of
never
the
read
Black
Black
Hammer
Hammer,
stuff,
no.
but yeah.
I know it's split off in other books too, right?
Really good. Yeah. Oh, several books. Yep. What book would you recommend to a non-comic book reader? Lock and Key.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Joe Hill.
By Joe Hill and
Son of Stephen King.
Gabriel Rodriguez.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. A fantastic.
I have the entire thing. I've never read it. I bought that all in floppies.
If you're a fan of entertainment, then you would like this book. Anybody would like this book, I'm pretty sure. What do you do with your old comics? I do it all. I store them in long boxes. I have a system, you know. I have a system. It's like an assembly line. It goes from one place to another once I've read it, and then
I have a system
goes
as well,
into
but it's
long-term
not-
storage.
If I was hired by somebody for the system, I would have been fired a long time ago
Yeah.
for my system. Yeah.
If I don't want it anymore, it goes into a different box, and then that box goes out to be sold on eBay or donate. Yeah, it's crazy, but it keeps my wife from kicking me out. Do you ever reread any comics? Yes, I do. I reread Lock and Key. I reread Watchmen, Preacher, and Walking Dead. Although I haven't gone all the way through Walking Dead rereading it.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean,
do
it's
go back
still
and reread
going,
it.
so it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Original art. Do you own original art? Yes. I have a lot of original art, not necessarily framed and on my wall, but I go to Comic Cons and I ask. I talk. I get a little rapport going with an artist, and I ask them if they'd be willing to draw me a little sketch of something. And 9 times out of 10, I get a yes.
I go to a lot of cons, and last year at New York Comic Con, was last year the first year we went with you?
The year before.
This year, yeah. So that was the first year we went,
so
right?
2017.
And I saw Lloyd go to every artist he wanted and just ask them to. And in my head, I'm there, and I think Lou was with us, and we're both like, they're going to tell him to go fuck himself. And now, granted, they're all quick 2-minute sketches, but I think you walked out that day with like 16 sketches from artists that didn't charge you a dime.
Right.
You know, it was, and you put them all on the back of backing boards.
Yep.
Right.
They're all on backer boards.
Yeah. You've got a super nice collection.
Yeah, I have a little portfolio of them. Some of them are fantastic. I've got like 3 from Sean Gordon Murphy, some Batman stuff from him, some stuff from The Wake, Terry Moore. Yeah, I got a lot of good stuff. And then I also have 2 Nosferatu. One that I got from Michael Kelleher. Thank you very much, Michael and John, who set that up for me. And another one from Tom Ryan.
Tom Ryan,
a buddy
awesome.
that we met at BingCon.
Awesome local artist.
Yep. How many? What cons do you do? I do a few per year. Terrific Con, New York, Rhode Island. Although we didn't go this year. And then some smaller cons. one-day cons, Brass City and Cliff Cons. And BingCon. Does your partner understand, support? Is she a fan? No, she actually likes that I'm into it and that it keeps me busy and gives me something to do and.
Keeps Manster off the streets.
Made new friends through it. She doesn't read, and she used to read Archie's. I used to buy her Archie comics, every once in a while, but she just stopped reading them. So you don't have to buy me those anymore. So I stopped.
I've had that. Yeah. I feel that.
Have you ever stopped reading? Well, considering that I just started 10 years ago, I did right in the beginning after a couple of years, but then I came back and haven't stopped since. And do you see yourself still reading comics when you're 80? I don't know. I would like to, but
Seeing that that's 2 weeks from now, yeah, why not?
Hey, it's probably like 30 years. We'll see. I don't know.
All right, let me go through mine pretty quickly here, because for the first time in a while, the battery is dying on the laptop.
Oh, wow.
So we got to run. Who's your top 3 current working artists and writers? For me, Jason Aaron. I love that dude. My love affair with him started with a book called Scalped.
Scalped.
Which I'll get into in a second.
Just finished that whole series.
Robert Kirkman. Robert Kirkman. I'm a huge Walking Dead fan, and Invincible might be better. And I love that guy. I don't read Saga. I do collect Saga, and I will read it someday. But I put Brian K. Vaughan because Brian K. Vaughan is fucking awesome.
Oh, he is so good.
For me, I think of him back with the Why the Last Man and Ex Machina, and he did so many cool things, and he's still out there. 3 artists, Francesco Francavilla. We're not going to talk about him anymore, but he's just great. Ryan Otley, who is the artist for a long time on Invincible, is doing some Spider-Man stuff now. And Frank Queatley.
And Grizzly Shark.
And Frank Queatley, who partnered up a lot with Grant Morrison. He did All-Star Superman. He did a book called We Three. Very stylized.
Jupiter Circle.
Yeah, I didn't read those. Somehow I ended up not getting them, so I'm going to get those on trades. Who is your all-time favorite artist? I would honestly say, even though a lot of people don't like him, Romita Jr.
Yep.
I just love, especially his latest style that he's gone through. Who is your all-time favorite writer? That was a tough one, but I'm almost going to lean into Garth Ennis. His Preacher, The Boys, his run on Hellblazer, the guy is just fantastic. All-time favorite character, it's not Spider-Man, although I love Spider-Man. Daredevil. I'm a huge Daredevil fan. Who's your favorite creative team? That's another one that, I can say Kirby and Lee. I could say a lot of these things. I really like Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon together.
Oh, yeah.
When they did Preacher, when they did The Punisher, Welcome Back, Frank, and they did a lot of that series together. Those guys just work together really well. Unfortunately, Steve Dillon passed away a few years ago, but fantastic team. Is there a creator whose book you will always buy? I will almost always buy something Romita Jr. does, and Jason Aaron's name on something gets me interested. Like, I wasn't reading Avengers for years,
right?
And he took over and is doing the new one, and I picked it up. Do you buy digital? No, I just can't cross that bridge. Do you buy hardcovers, trades, or graphic novels? Yes. At shows deeply discounted or at instocktrades.com. What books do you own?
We should
3
get
or more?
T-shirts.
I know, really. They owe us something. What books do you own? 3 or more different formats or versions? I probably own a couple, but I'd say Watchmen is the one I think off the top of my head. I have the trade. I don't have the floppies because I wasn't collecting at the time that was out. I was kind of out of it. Mid-'80s. I didn't read stuff so much by series. I just read issues. I have the trade. I have the Absolute, which is the big hardcover, and I have the annotated, which is really cool. It's got a bunch of little notes and kind of like artist direction and stuff. Do you still read books? I try, but in all honesty, no. I do try. I still buy books and stuff. And do you ever keep buying a book even after you've lost interest? Yes, my biggest fault as a comic reader is that I have a collector's mentality when it comes to some things, certain books too. Amazing Spider-Man, Daredevil. I don't lose interest in those books. I still really enjoy them. But I will not, like, if Daredevil comes out or Spider-Man comes out and it's the worst, I'm going to buy it.
Yeah.
because I want all the
Because you love
issues.
them, yeah.
Yeah.
I've just been getting in Daredevil.
Yeah.
It's one of my new favorites.
It's fantastic. What's your favorite non-DC Marvel or DC indie book? I put two because I thought of the second one afterwards. The Walking Dead. It's been a long-time favorite of mine, but Scalped might be my overall favorite of all time.
So good.
If you've never read Scalped, it was a Vertigo book written by Jason Aaron, and it is basically about Native Americans in
Casinos.
in the res, and the
and
casinos, and it's a crime story.
corruption and
And it's actually, they've been talking for years about it being a TV show. I know they hired people to actually be in it. What one book would you recommend to non-comic readers, and why? This one I thought was easy to me, and nobody answered this one. Sandman.
okay.
Sandman, it transcends comics. It's incredible storytelling. It doesn't matter. I don't like comic books. Read this and you're going to go, holy shit. What do you do with your old comics? I store them, I keep them, but I have been donating a ton of my chaff I put to children's and regular hospitals over the
You've been
last few
doing
years.
that?
I have
Yeah,
been.
I'm gonna have to do that.
There is a guy, I will introduce you. There's a guy who goes to our comic book store that we go to that works for a hospital in New Haven. And he picks my books up every few months
Oh, okay.
and brings them. And when I ran out of stuff that was kid friendly, he can get them to adult stuff too. So
Excellent. All right.
and I've gotten rid of hundreds of books that way. And I don't care about tax write off or anything. I'm glad that people are enjoying books.
them. Yeah.
Do you ever reread comics? Which ones? Watchmen is the one I go back to most often. I used to reread that yearly. I haven't in a while though. Do you own original art of your favorite artists? Nothing, no pages or anything, but I have a lot of little sketches and stuff. I have a Scott Collins Flash, Luke Ross, Captain America, Larry Hama, the great Larry Hama, Destro. How often? Which Comic Cons do you attend? Too many. New York Comic Con, Rhode Island Comic Con, Granite State, Terrificon, Bing Comic Con, Boston, which I haven't been to in a couple years. Does your partner understand Support Your Habit? Is he or she a comic fan? Not a fan. Very cool about it, although I think she keeps her frustrations to herself. Have you ever stopped reading for a while, then come back into the fold? Yes. From 1991 to 2000, I was totally out of comics, and I missed the 90s. So all that bullshit that everybody always talks about, I didn't read any of that shit. So when I came back in, when I came back in was when people were considering it kind of like a resurgence of quality. I've seen dips since then, but
Yeah.
And do you see yourself still reading comics when you're 80 years old? Yes. All right. So with that being said, and with the laptop dying, check us out at www.pinecomics.com. Go to YouTube. We have a YouTube channel now. Type in Pine of Comics. Subscribe to our channel. We're going to get some new content up there. And then go over and click that little bell. And then every time something new comes up, you'll be able to check us out. Manster, thank you so much for creating tonight's episode, basically. With the, I don't remember what we called it. The Manster, Fanfare, Questionnaire. Extraordinaire. But basically, everybody that wrote back to us, I understand that was a lot to read back, but I think it's kind of interesting hearing other people's collecting habits and reading habits, and hopefully, sometimes some people say, "Hey, Pine of Comics, you don't do anything that's comic oriented all the time."
Yeah, I wonder.
Well, guess what? That was pretty comic fucking oriented. So thank you so much, and I will say it tonight. See ya.
It's over, Johnny. It's over! Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off!
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
You're always so boring. You got to do something a little bit more interesting. Wow. Okay.